So last time we had you on the show, you spoke about the BBC protest that you were conducting. So, and now your team is organizing this new protest. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Sure. I mean, the background to this is quite vast, so you'll have to give me some time on this one. I mean, if I was to talk about the background as to why we're doing this, it's predominantly because 26/11 is India's 9/11 moment. We've had terror incidents before that and after that, but the scope of the 26/11 attacks, the way it was carried out, it was just not an attack on Bombay. From my prism of things, it was an attack, our collective conscience. When I say collective conscience, as in the whole of India. And to understand this, one would really have to delve into the background of why this has happened. And for me, it's essentially Islamic terrorism which has been responsible for this kind of reprehensible and absolutely ghastly attacks. I mean, the world has seen this for about the last 20 odd years, but India has been pleading the world to take cognizance of this and, our plight for a very, very long time. When we look at India and its sort of, uh, its connections to terrorism and its exposure to terrorism, um, the problem I have is that we've got a memory of that of a goldfish, and whatever happens to us collectively, we tend to forget. After a couple of years, we mourn about it, we talk about it, and then we easily cover our wounds up. Things have been happening since 1947, if I was to look at it, right from the inception of Pakistan. Uh, Back in 1947, 22nd of October 1947, it was the Pakistani deep terror state, which essentially sent Afghans and Pashtun tribal men dressed as uh, Kabilis to come and attack Kashmir. And this was a ploy which was essentially designed by the Pakistani government and the intelligence agencies way back on the 20th of August. So that was literally 5 days after independence. So it's we can see that the foundation of in India and its exposure to terrorism has been with its foundation of Pakistan. And how it essentially pans out is it was the Pakistani army which designed this nefarious plan called Operation Gulmarg, where they would essentially use irregulars of the Pakistani army to go into Jammu and Kashmir. They looted, they plundered, they pillaged, they raped women and little girls, and they killed the men. And it was absolutely horrendous. So that sort of arm twisted the Maharaja, then Maharaja Hari Singh, to sign the instrument of accession, and then India gets involved, airlifts its men and sends them into Kashmir to fight the tribal, the so-called tribal, but actually the irregulars of the Pakistani army, and ultimately Pakistan army comes into the foray, not very late, but in 1948. The plan was essentially hatched by a Pakistani colonel called Colonel Sher Khan, and these are documented part of our history. It's nothing that can be refuted. So the reason why it's imperative for us to remember this war is simply because it's a lesson learned of defeat of deceit and defeat both. I say defeat because a part of Kashmir was essentially lost. Part of Jammu and Kashmir, I beg your pardon, was lost, and that is today what is known as Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where the people of Jammu and Kashmir, occupied by Pakistan, are still crying for help. They're still crying for humanitarian aid, and all of that is not being covered by the Western media. Now, let's go into where things essentially become a bit interesting. 1971, the Bangladeshi Liberation War happens. It's a humiliating defeat for the Pakistanis, too much to bear, and they conduct an introspective session where it was essentially agreed that in a conventional war, it's nearly impossible to beat India. You cannot defeat them because it's too powerful an army. So they came up with a plan called Operation Topak, spelled as Tupak. Um, it was essentially driven again by the Pakistani intelligence, the ISI, and while they were supplying arms to the northeast India right from the 1950s, the real issue really begins now after the 71 war, where it was strategically clear that they wanted to bleed India with 1,000 cuts. So how would they bleed India with 1,000 cuts? They create problems in Jammu and Kashmir. They create problems in Punjab, which they call, essentially they call this a K2 plan. Um, K2 as in Kashmir and Khalistan, and they would essentially create unrest within India, which will trigger some sort of a balkanization, and India will self-implode into various states. They exploited the porous borders on both sides, which is Pakistan and Nepal and Myanmar, and they started training people and creating sleeper cells of Indian militants. And this was the strategy that sort of helped them create insurgencies in Jammu and Kashmir. Um, the rest is history thereafter. I mean, the sleeper cells have caused us so much of pain, so much of grief. 93 bombings, 257 odd people were killed. 03 bombings, 93 killed. Akshardham, 80 people were killed. Samjhauta Express in 2007, about 70 odd people killed. Amarnath, about 110 people killed. So you see where I'm coming from. It's essentially a string of terrorist attacks which we've had to endure. But we forget and forgive too easily without demanding much accountability. And these are some of the attacks that I've read out only so that we can estimate what the overwhelming number of innocents that have lost lives due to Pakistan-sponsored terrorism is. And like I said, 26/11 is essentially our 9/11 moment, and Bombay was essentially a sort of an attack right on our conscience. And this is something which we should never forget and never forgive, because this needs to become uh, a lessons learned for us. And the question is, have we learned a lesson? Probably not, which is why we're doing this protest. We know for a fact the protest is not going to it's not going to change much from a Pakistani side of things. It's not going to suddenly change their hearts and suddenly say that you know what, we're going to give up our non-state actors. All of these Lashkar-e-Jhangvi and Lashkar-e-Taiba, we're just going to dismantle them. It's not going to happen. But it's to raise awareness not only back home in India, but also in Britain, which has suffered 7/7 bombings, for instance. All 7/7 bombers were all of them were Pakistani origin. So that's what we want to ensure, that we never forget, and most importantly, we never forgive Pakistan for sponsoring terrorism.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.